Welcome, everybody. We will get started in a minute. Amazing turnout. Thank you
Hi,
guys
hello. Good
for
afternoon.
being here.
I'm sorry,
And
can you hear me?
yes, we're going
Oh,
to.
I feel like I'm screaming. I'm sorry. Hi. Good afternoon.
Hi. All right. We've got a few more people joining, and then we will get started. Yeah, if you guys would like to start off by introducing yourselves in the chat, people can get an idea of who all is here. That's great. There are a lot of people who are observing Stalking Awareness Month with us, and that's great. What time are we? Okay, 2 minutes after. I will let Anna keep letting folks in, but we will go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much. I love seeing everybody introducing themselves in the chat. Thank you. Welcome to Stalking in Older Adults, an overview. It is brought to you today by the Stalking Prevention Awareness and Resource Center and the National Clearinghouse on Abuse in Later Life. Next slide, please. So this project was supported by a grant from the Office on Violence Against Women. Just a reminder that the opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations that you're going to hear from Dana and me today do not necessarily reflect the views of the Office on Violence Against Women. My name is Ann Lotch. I'm the Justice System Coordinator for the National Clearinghouse on Abuse in Later Life. I've been with NCALL for about 7 years, and we provide technical assistance to Office on Violence Against Women Abuse in Later Life grantees. So we work at the intersection of domestic violence, sexual assault, and elder abuse. And I'm super excited to be training today with the real star of the show, Dana Fleitman from SPARC, who's always a joy to present with, and you're going to learn a ton, and I will let her introduce herself.
Hi, thanks so much, everyone, for joining. It's wonderful to see this turnout, and it's always a joy to co-present with Ann. I always really look forward to it and all the expertise that she brings. So I am the Training and Awareness Specialist at SPARC, the Stalking Prevention Awareness and Resource Center, which is a project of Equitas, as well as the technical assistance provider on stalking. And so it's our job to get folks talking stalking, incorporating stalking into their response, etc. And so our website is stalkingawareness.org. There we have practitioner guides, and those are broken out by discipline. So I'm seeing diverse professionals on the call, which is great. And so we have a section, for victim services, for campuses, for law enforcement, for corrections probation, for judicial officers, for awareness educators, and so on. And speaking of awareness educators, if you do any kind of community or campus education around related issues like healthy relationships or sexual violence or elder abuse, it's great to be talking stalking as well. And so we have scripted programs that you can pick up and lead with slides and videos, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have discussion guides on the popular TV show You, and other ways to get people to start engaging in this content without, again, you having to make it all up. We are not a direct service provider, but we know that victims come to our website for information and resources. And so we have resources you can share with victims that we're happy to provide to you. For example, these brochures on understanding stalking. You can put your agency information here. We have these in English and Spanish. You can order them for free from our website. And so, if you have something to hand your victim of sexual violence, of domestic violence, make sure you have a resource for your stalking victim as well when they walk in the door. We also have infographics, fact sheets, and actually something that's exciting, well, all of it's exciting, but that was recently added is a new resource on the intersection of stalking and abuse in later life that is just up now. So I'm just sharing that in the chat. So when you want to reminisce about this webinar and share it with everybody else, in addition to listening again, you can kind of follow along with that guidance. We also have recorded webinars and we're called SPARC, so I got us to call it the SPARchives. So that was like the pinnacle of my career. So you can check us out on the SPARchives. And we're on social media. Our handle on there is at Follow Us Legally. If you get our 6 cents of humor at SPARC, we will not prosecute. We will not be scared. We want you to follow us. It is consensual. especially this month, as you may know, is National Stalking Awareness Month. So if ever 'twas a time to raise awareness about stalking, it's now, though of course it's always Stalking Awareness Month to me. And sign up for our newsletter. You know, as an anti-stalking organization, we will not contact you excessively or without your consent. So you have to actually opt into our newsletter, and it's one we send around quarterly. It's not one you're getting all the time. But it's just a great way to keep stalking top of mind year round, in addition to all the other important issues and victimizations that you're working on. And with that, I'll hand it back to Anne to talk a little more about NCALL.
Thank you. And I apologize if you hear dogs barking in the background. Naturally, they were sleeping until 5 minutes ago. So as many of you know, NCALL is the comprehensive TA provider for the OVW Abuse in Later Life Grant Program, as I mentioned. And since 1999, we have been the only national organization that provides technical assistance, training, and consultation on the intersection of domestic violence, sexual assault, and elder abuse. We are a national project. We have 6 staff. We are located all over the country. We are based in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm coming to you from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We do our work in service of our mission in a variety of areas and contexts related to abuse in later life. And we do this work both as a team and also through collaborations and partnerships, including our ongoing work with SPARC, which we love. Let's talk about what we are going to be learning about today. After today, you're going to be better able to recognize stalking behavior, understand how stalking impacts older adults and how that may be different from how it impacts younger people, and also identify some resources to improve your response or your organization's ability to respond to stalking. And then just an overview of the content. I'm going to talk a little bit about abuse in later life, elder abuse. We'll get into what defines stalking. It may be maybe what you think it is, or it may be a little bit more nuanced than what you're thinking when you think of stalking. Certainly more nuanced than what we see in the media. Implications for stalking and how to respond to it and what that means, and then some resources. So let's begin with just talking generally about elder abuse. The definition that we're going to use for purposes of this presentation comes from the Elder Justice Roadmap, which was a product of the field that was published in 2014. And that definition is that elder abuse is the physical, sexual, or psychological abuse, as well as neglect, abandonment, and financial exploitation of an older person by another entity that occurs in any setting, and that it's either in a relationship where there would be an expectation of trust, or when an older person is targeted based on age or disability. So what are the really important components of that definition are, first, that it occurs in any setting. Most elder abuse, most abuse in later life happens in the community, in private homes, because that is where most older people live. Often when I tell people what I do for a living, they go right to nursing home neglect. And they're like, oh yeah, nursing homes are the worst. And then I tell them that only 4% of older adults actually live in nursing home settings. The vast majority of abuse happens in the community, can certainly happen in facilities as well, and it does. Then the other key part of this definition is that expectation of trust. So for purposes of our work, and also for this presentation, we're not talking about stranger scams. We're not talking about the guy who calls your mom every day to talk about her car warranty, things like that. We're talking about trusting relationships, familial relationships, intimate partner relationships, caregiver relationships, friends, that sort of thing. Or also when an older person is targeted based on the fact that they are an older individual. So just to give you some context for our discussion today. How often are people abused, and what does that look like? We know that 1 in 10 community residing older adults reported in one study having experienced abuse in the last year. Now, to me, that number is striking because it only includes people who had the economic, physical, and psychological resources to report that abuse. Obviously, the study didn't interview everybody. There are many reasons, which we could go into for a whole nother webinar, about why people don't disclose. But the fact that somebody is able to disclose abuse already puts them in a category by themselves. So we expect that that 1 in 10 number is much, much higher. This statistic does not include older adults that are living in residential facilities. These are community residing older adults. And those populations may actually, according to some research, be the most vulnerable of the older population. It also does not include the huge numbers of people that we know are not willing or able to report abuse. I can send out any of these citations for some of the stats that we'll be citing today after the webinar if you are interested. Next slide, please. So this is our famous iceberg slide that we, if you've been at any NCALL presentation, you have seen this before. This second statistic is what we learned from the great folks at Lifespan in Rochester. I don't know if there's anyone from Lifespan on the call today, but we love you guys. And also from what we know anecdotally through our work at NCALL. Elder abuse is significantly underreported. While we have no way of knowing for sure how many cases of elder abuse go undetected, this 2011 Lifespan study found that in New York State, for every 1 case of elder abuse, including stalking, that came to the attention of a responsible entity, another 24 cases never came to light. So that's pretty extraordinary. What this indicates is, again, a significant underestimation of the scope and scale of the issue. It also indicates the importance of being able to work effectively with older victims so that they are aware that there are places that they can report, then that there are resources that are available to support them in ways that that may be unique to them. So it really highlights the importance for us as service providers and advocates of creating welcoming and accessible systems and responses that allow older victims the possibility of access to healing and to justice. So we are next going to talk about, we're going to look at a video. And you may have seen this before. I think it's a little bit of an older video. It's about 5 minutes long, but it really hits a lot of excellent points about stalking crimes and their impact on the victim, particularly when that victim seeks assistance. So we can go ahead and start that video.
Over the course of 9 months, 86-year-old Velva Norenberg was stalked, but local law enforcement was not able to identify a pattern of stalking.
My house has been robbed and robbed and robbed. My things have been taken and moved, and he seemed to enjoy being in my house when I was there. He used his trusty screwdriver and pried out the lock. My back door looks like a beaver had chewed it. After he quit breaking in, he'd just come in the yard and watch me through the window. Maybe rattle a doorknob before he left to let me know he was there. Until the last time he broke in, he tapped on the glass.
Law enforcement repeatedly responded to Velva's home for the robberies, but the items stolen were of little value.
Panty girdles, hand lotion. First he started in on the pantyhose and panty girdles. He took 3 panty girdles, and I'd say at least 15 or 20 pair of pantyhose.
That nothing of value was taken from Velva's house, that windows weren't broken, although the door jambs were just chewed up by the screwdriver. I think there was discounting the impact of the crime, and Velva was very calm, and I think that her behavior was a bit different from what people expect from victims.
It's easy to not take it seriously, to say, oh, it's just pantyhose, it's a sort of a silly thing. The items taken were sexual in nature, and let's face it, we have a whole history of believing that the peeping Tom is something almost to be laughed at.
The phone calls Velva received, sometimes 10 or more in one day, were of a sexual nature as well.
He was always so in love with me, he was coming over. Well, now, I definitely am not in love with some young man. I don't care how much he loves me. I didn't love him or had any intention of having anything to do with him, and I told him so. But he would call, oh, lady, you've got the most beautiful body.
I think her home became a far less safe place for her.
He asked me if I was still sexually active and how long since I'd had intercourse. I figured that was none of his business, and I didn't want to listen anymore, so I hung up.
It may be somewhat amusing to hear an 87-year-old woman say, he said he wanted to make love to me. But when you put that in context and you think about the man behind those words and the kind of danger that he could pose to anybody,
it makes you creepy. Your privacy is invaded. Somebody thinks he knows more about you than you do. I don't like that.
This defendant in 1983 had been convicted for assault with intent to rape with an elderly person in the same area.
Law enforcement response to the danger was delayed by the inability to recognize the calls and harassment as the felony crime of stalking. As is common, this was partly due to the fact that different officers responded each time.
It wasn't until the 9th response by law enforcement that somebody finally put it together that this was a pattern of behavior. Her age was against her. People tend to discount what an older woman is saying.
They didn't rush off. They were very polite and very nice. But as I say, it was an incident and it was over.
Really listen to your victim. Don't go into the situation with preconceived notions or some idea of a quick fix, because usually there isn't one. But your role as a law enforcement officer is so crucial in dealing with this problem.
I got a feeling that they really were trying to help me, but they helped me through the incident, but there was no follow-through. After several times, I even wrote a report and mailed it to the police department saying how many times I'd been entered, what had been taken.
And I think Velva's log that she kept every time there was an attempted break-in or phone calls or anything really was a visual representation that somebody could look at and say, this is a pattern of behavior. We're dealing with more than a single incident.
A young police officer handed me his card, and then he said, I think this should be turned over to some special division for investigation.
Although no one knew the stalker's identity, the police investigator tracked down a suspect who had been convicted of similar crimes in the past.
So what's really, if you have reactions to Velva's story or thoughts about that, I would invite you to share them in the chat. What really stands out for me is, I guess that for 9 months she was stalked, but law enforcement was, quote, not able to identify a pattern of stalking, even though she had documented things so well and had kept records and reported that things were stolen and moved, and the fact that he was in the house while she was there. I mean, just the notion that it took so long for her to actually be heard and have a good response. The robberies were sort of discounted because the items stolen were of little value. She wasn't physically harmed. And like they mentioned in the video, the notion of a peeping Tom, just the fact that we give it that funny name makes it seem like it's a funny thing. And so lots to unpack here. Somebody else mentioned, let me just get to the chat here. What stands out for me is you need to listen to the victim no matter the age, and there needs to be follow through. Right. I think, and we'll talk a little bit about this, more about this as we go on, but for me, I just see ageism, inherent through the response here, that people may be thinking, well, I don't know, does she know what she's talking about? Look at how old she is. Or why would somebody be stalking a woman who's older? Stalking is only, stalking victims are all young and attractive and whatever. And I think we need to check our own ageism in our responses to older victims, regardless of what the crime is. But I think it's pretty apparent here. And I think the fact that she documented everything as well as she did, really, I don't know where she would be if she had not done that. I think that was really good. So, all right. So yes, you see, we have a poll. I'd love to know how many of you are aware that you have worked with an older adult who has experienced stalking. I know I mentioned this last year when we did this webinar, but I was telling my mom that I was doing this stalking webinar, and she was like, oh, older people don't get stalked. And then she got to thinking about this woman who lives in the same apartment building my mom lives in, who said the guy from, was telling her that the guy from the hardware store kept coming around and was following her and would walk home behind her a little bit of ways. And I'm like, Mom, what do you think that is? And then she realized that, I think she had some of that internalized ageism too, thinking, no, that's a younger person's crime or whatever. Looks like some of you definitely have got experience working with older stalking victims, which I'm happy to know that you are recognizing it and working with them. I'm sad to know that so many are. Somebody is working with somebody right now. All right. Thank you guys for being here and sharing experiences. I think for now, if we can put questions in the chat, we will keep track of them and make it a point to get to them before we finish today. So I'm going to turn it over to Dana. He is going to get into the stalking definition and dynamics. So I will mute myself. Dana?
Yeah, thanks so much, Anne. And yes, I'm always so struck by that video and all of the issues that it brings up, in addition to the ageism that, of course, is really important and cannot be overstated here. Some of the common misperceptions and minimizations that many stalking victims experience, I think, are enhanced and exacerbated by the ageism, but also this sense of, well, no one's really getting hurt here. Or, you really should be flattered by this. And that's something that our stalking survivors hear quite a bit, the sense that like, oh, maybe it's kind of annoying, but, nothing really bad is happening. And as you will see in this session, if you haven't come across already, that's simply not accurate. That's just not true to stalking. It's also great to see some folks here saying, yeah, I have worked with older victims of stalking, because it can be hard for those victims to know where to go. I mean, there's no national stalking hotline. There are few, if any, standalone stalking resource centers, right? Most of our services for stalking victims come through domestic violence services or sexual assault services. And so often these victims just don't know where to go. And so I'm glad that y'all are flagging some of them and getting some of them the help that they need. All right, so stalking, what exactly is it and why should we care? Well, stalking is a really important thing to understand. It is criminal, it is traumatic, and it is dangerous. And we also want to remember that there are 4 major crimes under the Violence Against Women Act. It's domestic violence, sexual assault, dating violence, and stalking. But it's always kind of like, and stalking, like we almost call their website andstalking.org, because so often it's an afterthought in our field, because we're working primarily with these other victimizations and kind of are being tasked to add this on. And it's burdensome to ask folks who are already really busy with those other victimizations to add more on. But like I just said, there's really nowhere else for these survivors to go. And so our job at SPARC is to make it, I won't say easy, but as easy as possible to integrate a stalking response into the critical work that you're already doing. And so again, stalking, criminal, traumatic, dangerous. Stalking is criminal. It's a crime at the federal level in all 50 states, as well as US territories. It's a crime on tribal lands and in the military justice system. It might be a misdemeanor or a felony, depending on the jurisdiction and the situation, but it is a crime across the board. A lot of folks don't realize that stalking is actually criminal. And so, sure, a lot goes into a victim's decision to engage with law enforcement or not, but a lot of them don't even realize they could, or that that's an option, because they're, oh, should I call the police because someone's driving by my home or ringing my doorbell or texting me? And sure, again, a lot goes into that decision, but quite a few aren't sure where to go or that they even could get that kind of a response. And it is traumatic. So many stalking victims experience mental health issues that can be short-term to lifelong, particularly post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, and depression. And if you think about what we call that anticipatory fear, that sense of waiting for the other shoe to drop. And maybe you've experienced that in your life. Maybe you've been waiting for, an important call from the hospital or something like that. And you're in this sort of heightened state where anything could happen and it could be good or it could be bad. We have stalking survivors feel like that sometimes for years. And so you can imagine the kind of stress that creates and the kind of hypervigilance that results that, again, can be short-term to lifelong. Many stalking victims lose time from work. 1 in 8 lose some time. About half of those lose 5 days or more. And stalking
Oh
victims
my
are
God.
typically not a protected class of worker. And so there's often no, it's very state to state, but there's often no recourse for those victims if they do go to their supervisor and say, hey, here's what's going on. Could I switch shifts or not answer the front desk phone? They can be accommodated, or the supervisor can say, that's annoying, you're fired, right? And they typically won't have recourse. So we see victims losing their employment because of that, as well as, of course, interference from the stalker, right? Slash my tires, I can't get to work. They're parked outside the restaurant, I'm not going to go in and work my shift, right? And quite a few relocate. So this really shocked me when I learned this, that 1 in 7 stalking victims move. So think how annoying it is to move when you want to move, right? Even if you're excited about moving and it's a positive development in your life, it's still stressful, it's expensive. It's not something you do because someone's sort of annoying you, right? We have 1 in 7 stalking victims relocating to get away from these offenders, which I think helps to illustrate how consuming and traumatic this can be. And stalking is dangerous. It often co-occurs with physical assault and sexual violence, including but not limited to rape. 1 in 5 stalkers use weapons to threaten or to directly harm their victims. And in 76% of intimate partner femicides, so that's murder of a female partner by a male partner, in 76% of completed and 85% of attempted, there was stalking the year prior to that murder or attempted murder. And yet so often these stalking behaviors are dismissed and minimized as, oh, it's just someone kind of looking through the window. It's just texting, it's following, it's annoying, it's a little icky, but no one's really getting hurt here. And that's simply not true. In fact, this wonderful researcher we work with, Patrick Brady, went so far as to say that stalking is homicide in slow motion. These behaviors and tactics adding up and escalating over time, not always right in a straight line, right? There might be periods of dormancy. There might be, oh, they were in person and now they're emailing, maybe they're backing off, but now they're back doing something else and overall escalating. Now, I'm not saying that every stalking case escalates to the point of homicide or extreme violence, right? That's not accurate. What I am saying is that every week I read cases of homicide, attempted homicide, violence, attempted violence. And at that point, responders are looking backwards and saying, oh, look, there's this whole history of stalking victimization. Often that was reported to multiple sources, but was not dealt with the urgency that it required. In fact, the most common use of the criminal justice system prior to intimate partner homicide is reporting partner stalking. So we have these opportunities for intervention, but so often they're missed. And we don't want to do that, right? We don't want to wait for violence and then look backwards and say, oh, it turns out there was stalking all along, right? No, we want to identify the stalking while it's going on, for the traumatic victimization it is in its own right, as well as to help prevent some of these other harms. And stalking is one of the few victimizations that can help us do that, right? It's one of the few crimes where early identification and intervention can help prevent trauma, violence, and possibly even homicide. But it's quite underreported. So similar to elder abuse more generally, as well as domestic violence, sexual violence, most victims do not report, right? And so it depends what study you look at, but it certainly seems like fewer than a third of stalking victims are reporting to law enforcement, and even fewer than that are seeking victim services, right? And so it's quite underreported, and I'll hand it back to Anne to talk about why that might be.
All right, thank you, Dana. So less than half of stalking victims report to the police or to anybody at all. Why might that be? I think first I'd like to get your impressions. If you want to drop your ideas in the chat, what barriers might they face to reporting, or what other reasons might they be reluctant to report what's going on? And I'll give you guys a few seconds to answer. Embarrassment, stigma. You guys are such rock stars. Fear that they won't be believed. They may think it's not an emergency. Maybe they're not even recognizing the behavior as stalking, right? They may not want to waste resources. I think that's really a good observation. They may think this is not serious. I'm really not in danger. Somebody else needs help more than I do. Shame. They might be don't want to call 911. People have a plethora of reasons for not wanting to call 911. If it is a family member or someone that they know or knew or once cared about, that could be a barrier for them. They may not want to see that person get in trouble, maybe afraid they're not being taken seriously. Not sure if what's happening is a crime, right? Fear of being taken from home. I think what you guys are citing are reasons that older adults often don't report multiple kinds of abuse, right? But some of these are especially appropriate when we're talking about stalking. Fear of harm. If they do report, is there going to be retaliation? Is the stalker going to respond in a way that is violent? Because it is so minimized, they think it's their own fault. You guys are doing my job for me here. Health, yes, health services that are available are really geared towards people experiencing intimate partner violence. And if that's not the bucket that this falls into, they may think it isn't worth it. Self-doubt. All right, you guys have this. Excellent ideas. I'll keep an eye. Fear of institutionalization, huge. May feel that they can handle it on their own. All right, let's go to the next slide and look at what the research is telling us. We do know that 42% of stalking victims overall felt that what was happening to them was not important enough to report. And, where Dana talked about this being the kind of crime where, when something violent or some traumatic event does happen, oftentimes it is identified in hindsight, right? You look back and think, oh, they were being stalked that whole time. So some of those behaviors that they may discount as just somebody being weird or being persistent or being whatever, is actually stalking. So sadly, 42% thought it wasn't important enough to report. Another large group, 40%, dealt with it another way. Maybe they changed the way that they changed their routes that they took to go certain places, changed their phone number, got rid of an email account, thought they handled it some other way. 33% thought the police would not do anything, so they wouldn't bother to report. 19% had experiences where the police straight up would not help, didn't take it seriously either, so they didn't want to report it again. And then 8%, so not an insignificant number, feared the offender, feared retaliation if they were to report this. So I think you identified most of these and some more in your responses. Let's talk about victim services. 16% of stalking victims did seek assistance from victim services, but nearly 1 in 4 who sought those did not receive any. And I think, again, this is a reminder for us to take a look at the way that we provide services and to think, are we really in tune with what stalking means and what it looks like and how it impacts individuals so that we can tailor our services to best respond to older people who are being stalked, because we know it happens. But I think that often we don't see it for all the reasons that we've already mentioned here. So this is, and we're going to say this over and over during this presentation, this is a really good opportunity to take a look at the services you and your organization are providing and thinking, do we take this seriously? Do we understand what the signs are? Do we know how it affects people? And are we positioned to respond effectively?
And I'll just add too, we have a checklist with questions that are very practical, kind of that nature. If you want to be the most popular person at your next staff meeting, with questions with it like, hey, is the word stalking on our website? Do we have a stalking brochure to hand to people if we have one on domestic and sexual violence? Do we participate in Stalking Awareness Month the same way that we would, or at the same level we would for domestic violence or sexual assault? So some of the things are pretty low-hanging fruit, and some of them are a little bit more involved, like are all our staff trained on stalking? Are they aware that there is a risk assessment specific to stalking that they might utilize? Do we get that ongoing training? Do we know about the closest thing to a stalking hotline, which is Victim Connect? And so, I can share that in the chat, but I think to me, it's really telling that, yeah, we definitely want more victims coming through the door, but even when they do, quite a few are not getting what they need. And so, we want to make sure that we're letting them know where to go, that yes, this is the right place, and that when they arrive, we really have everything that they need to best navigate the situation.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. I will turn it back over to you, Dana.
Oh. Thank you. So we keep saying stalking is so bad, we have to do something about it. Like, what is it exactly? Well, there's your behavioral definition and your statutory definition. Every state has a different stalking statute to make it fun. And so I definitely encourage you to take a look at your state statute. I shared earlier in the chat, we have a map on our website where you can look at your jurisdiction, see your statute, and some analysis from our Equitas attorneys about, is this more or less stringent than the, stringent is not the right word, but is it more or less open than the behavioral definition, and a little bit of interpretation there. Also happy to talk statute with you anytime, but since we have a national audience today, we'll be focusing on the behavioral definition. Now, you may be from a state that has a more narrow statute. It's good to know that, but regardless, we want to know that behavioral definition, because when you're working with a stalking victim, you want to be able to say, hey, this is stalking. It has the risk profile of stalking. We're going to safety plan around it as stalking, and really treat that with the urgency it deserves. Whether or not stalking is the most strategic charge in your jurisdiction or not is another question, right? But either way, we want to know what it is. So I have these 3 scenarios for you, and all of these are bummers. Okay, we don't like any of them, but which of them are stalking? It could be all of them, some of them, or none of them. So I'm going to launch it as a poll here, and I'll just read them out loud real quick. This first one: staff member hides a camera in the women's locker room to watch the women undress. It goes undiscovered for months. Is this stalking? Yes or no? Second one: an ex-partner repeatedly spreads vicious rumors about their former partner on social media. Is this stalking? Yes or no? And last, this terrible supervisor asking her employee personal questions, mocking him in meetings, being verbally abusive when he doesn't respond to emails sent at odd hours. Is that stalking? So I'll give you, I don't know, maybe
Dana, I don't see them. Did you launch it?
yeah, I'm seeing the responses come in, so I think it might just be because you're a co-presenter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, hopefully folks can see it. If not, feel free to share in the chat. But yeah, I'm seeing the responses are coming in. Some of these are neck to neck. It's like pretty thrilling to watch, but I think I'm the only one who can see it right now. All right, I'll give another maybe 30 seconds. All right, I'm shutting it down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ending the poll. Okay. We share the results. So kind of split the group here. So in this first one with the staff hiding the camera, is the stalking? Yes or no? Most folks saying yes, but over a quarter saying no. The second one, a little more close, but about 2/3 saying, yeah, that spreading rumors, that could be stalking. A little over a third saying no. And then this terrible supervisor, that's the one where it looks like almost 80% of y'all are saying, yeah, that sounds like stalking. About a quarter of you are saying no. So thanks so much for doing that. And as someone already noted in the poll, or I'm sorry, in the chat, it can be frustrating because you're like, well, I need more information. Like, what's the context here? And you might have wanted to yourself, well, how many times did this happen? Or how did the victim feel about it? Or did it have to be directed at one person, or etc.? So luckily for you, we're going to go through the behavioral definition, and I'll use these examples in there. So behaviorally, stalking is a pattern of behavior directed at a specific person that would cause a reasonable person to feel fear for their safety or the safety of others, or to suffer substantial emotional distress. So to break that down a little bit more, it is a pattern of behavior. It is not a single incident or one-off event. And that's called a course of conduct in most stalking statutes and policies. So you might hear me use those terms kind of interchangeably today: pattern of behavior, course of conduct. I'm talking about the same thing. Behaviorally, it is 2 or more incidents. In a few states, statutes is 3 or more, but usually it's 2 or more incidents that make up that pattern. And those behaviors can be quite varied. So let's say I'm stalking Anne because I'm the worst co-presenter ever, okay? So maybe Monday I text Anne, Tuesday I'm mad she didn't respond, I smash her headlights, then Wednesday I feel kind of bad about that, so I send her flowers. All of those are stalking behaviors, right? And so stalkers often combine behaviors that are crimes on their own, like that property damage, with other behaviors that aren't criminal on their own, but can become criminal in the context of a stalking case. And that's confusing because It's not illegal to send someone flowers. It's not illegal to text somebody, but it is illegal to stalk somebody, right? And it's really the context that makes it scary and the context of everything else going on here. It's also tough because, like we saw with the Velvet example, our system tends to be incident based. We call law enforcement, they respond to an incident and they move on to the next call for service. It's not necessarily looking for this pattern of behavior that involves both crimes against person and property crimes. A lot of times those are treated totally separately and no one's necessarily looking to see, are these the same person and are these adding up? So I encourage you, whenever you're talking to any victim about an incident, take a step back and think, is this an isolated incident or is it part of a bigger pattern of behavior? Because that victim who's talking to you about, say, their smashed headlight may or may not think to disclose to you voluntarily, oh, and I know who did this, and they've been sending me weird text messages. And I've been getting those gifts in the mail lately. I think it's them, because that's not relevant to what we're talking about, but it needs to be, right? Because we want to know, is this isolated? Is it part of a bigger pattern of behavior? So it's a pattern of behavior, 2 or more, that is directed at a specific person or persons. So in that first scenario, if someone puts a camera in the women's locker room to see whoever happens to be in there, that's still a crime. Okay, we're not condoning it. But it's not really stalking unless it's directed at a specific person. Now, it could totally become stalking. Let's say that offender then identifies a woman from the videos that he's taken and then contacts her. Now we have 2 or more things, right? 2 or more behaviors. And now it is directed at someone specific. So it could absolutely be part of that course of conduct. But that on its own, we need another thing to happen. I don't have to be directed at a specific person or persons. And I say person or persons because it can be directed at multiple people, in that we often see what we call target dispersion, which is maybe an offender is targeting, say, their ex-partner. Ex-partner starts dating someone new. Okay, so now they're stalking their ex and the ex's new romantic interest, right? And our stalkers are trying to get access and information about their victims. So they're likely to reach out to a victim's family, friends, colleagues, caregivers, and others, right? Because they're trying to get that information. So a lot of folks can be involved and even considered co-victimized in a stalking case. But behaviorally, we see that as directed at a specific person, and they might use other people to get to that person, right? They're trying to get to that victim. They might use other people to do it. And it would cause a reasonable person to feel fear for their safety or the safety of others, or to suffer substantial emotional distress. So fear is really critical to understanding stalking, and it's what kind of separates stalking from a behavior it's often confused with, which is harassment. So harassment is typically that repeated behavior that would make someone feel angry, frustrated, annoyed, disrespected, degraded, and harassment can be quite serious. I'm not trying to minimize it in any way. It's that create a hostile environment, etc. But it's not necessarily scary. So if my supervisor is, emailing me at 2 a.m. and yelling at me, calling me degrading names in front of the staff, like, she's terrible and I hate her. I'm not necessarily afraid of her. I'm just like, wow, she's the worst. What a terrible environment this has been created for me. Like, I am very upset. But let's say that I'm driving home. I think I see her car a couple back. She texts me a picture of myself walking my pug, says, why are you doing that instead of working? She emails my husband. I don't know how she got his email. Now I'm scared, right? Because I'm like, how far will this go? What does this lady want from me? Like, what's happening? Is she gonna hurt me? And so harassment can be part of a course of conduct that is stalking. It can kind of become stalking, but they're a little bit distinct. And that's important because stalking typically has a higher risk profile than harassment. So in other words, victims of stalking are generally at higher risk for violence, for example, than victims of harassment. Also, from an adjudication perspective, it's typically a higher charge to go with stalking than harassment. So you want to be strategic depending on your jurisdiction, but they are a little bit distinct. Now, we have emotional distress in here as well. And when we talk about fear behaviorally, we're talking about fear of bodily harm, as well as that fear of emotional harm. And I don't mean that in a touchy-feely way, like, we all feel good all the time, though of course I wish that for you, right? Emotional harm, someone experiencing emotional distress feels that they are under surveillance, that their life is being invaded. that they are being sabotaged. The best quote I saw about it was a victim who said, "It's like he's taken my life without killing me." So that sense that you cannot live a normal life because of the constant interference from this stalking offender, right? And the fear of not being able to live that normal life because of that. So that's really what we talk about when we talk about fear and emotional distress. And again, always good to look at your stalking statutes. Some include emotional distress, some don't. Some it's only bodily harm, some it's more broad. But when we're talking behaviorally about stalking, we include both. And a lot of times that fear doesn't make a lot of sense at first, right? And so to an outsider. So for example, this was a stalking case, and the victim called the police. And honestly, she was hysterical. She's yelling, she's screaming, and all she'd say was, "There's a cup of coffee in my car." So understandably, the police are not sending out the SWAT team. They're kind of like, "Okay, lady, you prefer tea? Like, what is your problem?" And eventually she calmed down enough and said, "He's here." So it turned out it was a stalking survivor who had relocated to get away from the offender, address confidentiality, new job, really thought she covered her tracks. She leaves to go to work that day. She gets in her car. There's a cup of coffee with his old nickname for her on it. So I can't see you all since we're on a webinar, but typically when I tell that story in person, people go like, "Ugh," right? Because it's scary. It's really creepy when you know the whole story. But if all we see is this artifact of there's coffee in the car, we're like, amazing, it's winter. I wish my car did that. Like, we have no idea what the problem is. It's not apparent at first. And so that context is critical in stalking cases. It's really everything in stalking cases, because often what is scary to the victim may not seem scary to you as the responder. And so what you want to do is respectfully ask them more questions, right? If it doesn't make sense why they're having this reaction, ask questions like, "Okay, what message did that send to you? Tell me more about that. What's the story behind that?" Because these behaviors often have specific meanings only understood between the victim and the offender. The classic, albeit an extreme example, is an offender saying something like, "I'll send you roses the day I kill you." Right? So the victim's terrified. Everyone around the victim is saying, "Oh, this is so lovely," because they don't know that specific meaning. So it's context that makes stalking scary, and it's context that makes stalking stalking, because it's the context of what else is going on, how are these behaviors adding up, and while it's not generally illegal to send someone flowers, it is generally illegal to threaten to kill somebody, right? So when one means the other, we have to dig a little bit and explain more what's going on to best assist that victim or survivor. But is it fear? We saw in that Velva video, they're saying, well, she acted really calm. That's not how people expected a victim to act. So of course, as you already know from your work with victims of different kinds of crimes and victimizations, you do have some victims who appear very afraid, who are shaking, who are crying, who seem really scared. But we know that victims respond to trauma differently. You might have some who have no affect at all, or who seem really angry, who are laughing about the whole thing, right? It doesn't mean that it's not fear and that it's not stalking. We also just, as a culture, don't necessarily love to lead with "I feel afraid," right? We're more likely to say, "I'm concerned, I'm worried, I'm frustrated, I'm annoyed," right? Rather than "I'm feeling scared right now," right? There might be other things we say to kind of mask that or tamper that down a little bit. And most victims are not going to use the word stalking or fear, right? They're not going to come in your office and be like, "Hey, I'm experiencing a course of conduct directed at me, a specific person, that would cause a reasonable person to feel fear or emotional distress. I believe you call that stalking victimization behaviorally," right? Like, if they do say that, please call me. I'll be like, "Our awareness month is so good." They're probably not going to say that. They're going to say something like, "My ex is being creepy. My neighbor's being weird. An old friend is making things awkward. My employee's harassing me." And it's up to us to kind of be thinking, could this be fear? Could this be stalking, right? In addition to that kind of listening for, and recognizing they may not use the language, there's also quite a bit of minimization around stalking. And I know you all mentioned that around why victims don't report, and you're right. There's that fear of the responder minimizing it, right? So, calling the police and having them say, "This isn't a big deal, you're overreacting." But our victims do that themselves quite a bit because of the messages they've received, right? Or they're worried of being perceived that way and try to minimize what's happening. So for example, we've had, like, this officer shared the story with me. They were the regular point of contact for a stalking victim, and the victim was in a really good mood. So they called to check in, and they said, today's a great day. He's only driven by my house 10 times. And the officer's like, what do you mean it's a great day? It's 9 in the morning. That's ridiculous. And the victim was like, oh, but by this time, usually he's driven by like 25 times. So I think it's going to be a low-key day. So it's not that this victim's unreasonable, right? But she is responding to repeated trauma by normalizing what to most of us would be really scary. And that's where behaviorally that reasonable person standard is kind of helpful, because if you are a victim saying, oh no, it's fine that they are in all my devices and see everything I do and follow me everywhere, as long as they don't bother my kids, right? You kind of take a step back and be like, is it fine? Would a reasonable person think that's fine, right? And still be thinking about, let's learn more about this case, and is this potentially stalking? Another helpful way to assess for fear and to kind of figure out what's going on is ask the victim what they've changed as a result of the stalking behavior. Because I've had victims say, oh, I'm not afraid of them, but I left their picture with front desk security at my apartment building. I changed my routes to and from work. I changed my locks. I blocked them, their phone number, and I carry pepper spray now, like, just in case. Okay, so those aren't things you do when someone's kind of annoying you, right? To me, that indicates a higher level of fear or emotional distress. So ask about those accommodations. That's really evidence of fear or distress. Have they done things like changing their accounts? And I'm not saying they should or shouldn't do these things. I'm just saying most victims do some of them. And so that can help you assess, what their level of fear is. So for example, they used to share the location. Now they don't. They block the person. They change the phone number. Finances spent on safety devices or accommodations. That could be something quite expensive and robust, like I bought new security cameras, or I changed the locks. It could also be things like, I was driving home and I saw them parked outside my house, so I stayed at a motel instead, and here's the receipt. Or I bought this pepper spray, or I used to take the bus, but now I'll only take a private, Uber or Lyft, because I don't want to be as vulnerable and in the public. It could be security or privacy measures. Those could be all the things I just mentioned, as well as kind of withdrawing socially. I used to go out all the time, now I'm staying home. And financial impacts. Most of us can see how those are distressing, right? The money and time spent on repairing a damaged windshield, on identity theft. And like Anne said early on, we often, I think, do think about older adults being victims of, scams and other financial schemes. That's not really what we're talking about today, but certainly there are stalkers who will financially exploit older people as part of their course of conduct, right? And so that can absolutely be part of what is distressing about what's going on. And like I said, most victims do something, right? And so ask what they've already done so you can meet them where they are in your safety planning as well. So 80% of stalking victims take some kind of protective action. And here are the most common ones. You see them blocking unwanted calls or messages, changing personal information, changing day-to-day activities, taking some kind of security measures, or applying for restraining or protective orders. Stalking is an extremely prevalent victimization. In the United States, nearly 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men experience stalking in their lifetimes. And this is new data that came out from the CDC last year. And so it's really quite shocking. And I would add, we know that people of all gender identities experience stalking victimization, absolutely. This is the best available national data. That's why I'm kind of repeating it this way. And we know this is underreported, just like for other victimizations, right? But still, nearly 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men. And if you're familiar with the data around sexual assault or domestic violence, that's also, depending what study you look at, 1 in 3, 1 in 4, 1 in 5 women. So stalking's right up there. And yet, for so many folks that I talk with, it's their first stalking training they've attended. There's no national stalking hotline, no stalking crisis center. There's only really one national organization working on stalking as the TA provider, and I am a quarter of it, and it's a project of Equitas. Not that we have a chip on our shoulder or anything, but just to say that, this is a major issue that is really under-resourced in our field. And it happens to people across the lifespan. And so this was also from that recent study here. And I asked our more math-oriented colleague to break this down for me, looking at the number of victims and percentages, et cetera. And so, yes, the majority of victims are under age 50. And these are big categories, 50 to 64, 65 plus, right? That's a large category in terms of just the number of ages included there. But it's not only a victimization that happens to younger people. It's nearly 1 in 3 stalking victims are over age 50, right? And so that's really critical to recognize that this is intersecting with other kinds of victimization, including elder abuse. And that just because you're older doesn't mean you can't be a victim of stalking. And so we have to kind of keep that stalking lens on for all of our potential victims. So people of all genders experience stalking, like I said. Our women are more likely than men to experience it, and the majority of victims report the offender's male. That's regardless of sexual orientation of the victim. And that's true overwhelmingly for our female victims, right? Over 80% of the time, they are offenders male. But it's also true about half the time for male victims, about half the time they're offenders male. And so what's going on there? Why are men stalking other men? Well, some of it's an extension of power and control from same-sex male and male relationships, right? And some of it's that target dispersion I mentioned earlier. So maybe you have, an ex-husband stalking an ex-wife. She gets a new boyfriend. Now he's stalking the new boyfriend as well. That's not all men stalking other men, but that is a big piece of it. So if we look for pictures of stalking, which I do because I'm fun, okay? This is the kind of stuff I get. So a lot of kind of strangers, shadowy figures, hoodies, alleyways. I like this one in the middle left that's wearing like a mask and a hoodie and behind a computer, but did not cover the webcam. So this sense of kind of creepers in the alley, very similar to the myth of the stranger rapist, if you're familiar with that. And while this can happen, some offenders are strangers. I know it won't surprise you at all today who have joined on the call to know that this is not accurate. That actually, in the majority of cases, the victim knows the offender knows the victim. So I know that you know that already, right? But when I'm talking about stalking outside of our field, because I'm fun at parties and stuff, people are shocked by this because when most people think stalking, this is what they're thinking of. They're thinking about that shadowy stranger or like a secret admirer sending them a ransom style note because they're still buying magazines for some reason, or they have no idea who it is, right? And again, that can happen, but it's the minority of cases. And so this misperception is really powerful because it leads victims to say things like, oh, that's not a stalker. That's just my ex having a hard time getting over things. Well, again, surprising no one here, that's a major category of stalking offender. So this is for all ages, not unique to older adults. But you can see that current or former intimate partner is a major category of stalking offender, between 30 and 43%. But it's not all of it, right? Acquaintance is actually an even larger category. It can be a stranger, though it's relatively rare. It might be a brief encounter, like, oh, I think that person works at that coffee shop, or I think I've seen them kind of in the community, but I don't really know them. Or a family member, or a person of authority, a supervisor, a police officer, somebody who's has some kind of power over that victim. So to narrow in on acquaintance a little bit, well, first of all, in addition to being under-resourced, I will say stalking's also under-researched. So we don't have tons and tons of amazing data on stalking and older adults. That's just the reality. There was this study on stalking and age that grouped out kind of 3 different ages of victims. And so when we looked at this particular study, an older stalkers, age 60 plus, so this is one where the offender is older, who are they targeting? And it showed a larger percentage of acquaintances, over half the time, strangers about a quarter of the time, ex-intimate partners about a quarter of the time. And so if you look at kind of both of these together, we can see that acquaintance is a major category of stalker, right? So who are acquaintances? Well, this kind of broke this down from the original study showing the acquaintance percentage. And so a lot of times the acquaintance is still somehow related to the spouse's family or the offender's friend. So it's, for example, there was a divorce and now the the ex-husband's brother is stalking the victim, the ex, or it's a friend of the offender who feels that they've been wronged by that victim, right? And so there's some kind of relationship there. It could be a friend or an ex-friend about a fifth of the time. Might be a roommate, boarder, or neighbor. So like Anne said, most of our older adults are residing in community, not necessarily in assisted living facilities, but for those who do, there is more access to that more kind of dorm-like environment where there's more neighbors and folks like that. Or it could be a professional acquaintance. We know that our younger folks might be stalking older folks too. Our older folks are stalking younger folks. And really there's a diversity of relationships here. And so these are just a few sort of ripped from the headlines pieces here that, she got a ride, this woman got a ride from a stranger and then stalked him. We see these daily loan requests that became a stalking case. We see an offender killing his estranged ex-wife, right? So that intimate partner stalking. And we see a caregiver stalking an older adult, right? And so there's really a variety of relationships. And so I bring this up because often our victims, when they think of stalking, they're thinking of a stranger. And for us as responders, often when we're thinking about stalking, we think of intimate partner violence because that's where most of our response comes from, right? And we're both kind of only part right, and we're talking past each other, right? Because any of these relationships can be stalking relationships. So I encourage you to think about, are you serving victims of stalking, whether they're intimate partner stalking victims or victims of acquaintance stalking or any other kind of stalking relationship, because all of these victims need our help.
Hey, Dana, there was one question. Would you call clients or patients acquaintances?
Yeah, I think so. So I think that it would be someone that you knew. And so if you look at like this acquaintance breakdown, that might be a professional acquaintance, but this is like a percentage of the 38 blah, blah, blah numbers. So yeah, but if in this big one, I'd say probably an acquaintance. Yeah. Yeah, good question. And of course, if we're looking at our older adults, many of them have had long careers, right? They've met a lot of people. And so there is that kind of increased chance in some ways for more of those connections to come back. All right, so stalking behaviors. I don't mean this as a compliment to stalkers, but stalkers are extremely creative offenders. People always tell me the most bizarre, disturbing cases are stalking cases because definitionally, stalking is about going out of your way to scare somebody else, right? That's literally the point. And so if I read a case where an offender drove 300 miles to carve his ex's name in trees near her house, that's a stalking case. I've seen a lot of dead animals in the mail cases lately. Those are stalking cases. He's like, oh, why? Couldn't you just do anything else with your time? Those are stalking cases, right? And so because stalkers are creative, we have to be creative and broad-minded in identifying those behaviors that we might think of as other kinds of victimizations, and they might be, but also recognizing, this could be part of a stalking course of conduct. So one thing many stalkers do is this kind of, to use a really professional term, like crazy making behavior. So for example, a common stalker tactic is to break into a victim's vehicle or home and not take or break anything, but just leave some sign they were there. So maybe they leave a can of soda, that's the brand the victim knows they like to drink. Or they turn the TV on a channel they used to watch together. Or they move a lamp they one time argued about where it should go. And so the victim gets, let's say, home, they know that offender's been there. But they're like, what am I going to do? Call the police and say someone moved a lamp? I'm going to sound crazy. And offenders know that. That's why they engage in that behavior. In fact, 1 in 5 stalking victims report that exact thing. An offender breaking into their vehicle or residence and just leaving some sign they have done so. And so if a victim ever says to you, I know it sounds crazy, but that might be a stalking case. Now, for law enforcement on the call, I'm not saying don't investigate it. I'm just saying, your ears should perk up and say, this could be stalking. We also, we with a classic victim saying, well, I hear voices. Well, through smart devices, et cetera, it's pretty easy to talk to someone through an Alexa or a Nest camera or a Google Home. I also want to point out here that, of course, there's a lot of ageism. I mean, this is an issue across the board for our stalking victims, but even worse for our older victims who are often assumed to have some kind of mental decline or dementia, etc. And it's important to recognize that A, that may not be true, right? And B, even if it is, we still want to be investigating every incident separately. Like a victim can hear voices from dementia and be stalked. Like that can happen also, right? And so just because there is there may not be a co-occurring issue, we shouldn't assume there is one. And even if there is one, we still want to take that every report seriously and investigate every incident and not write off everything because of any other kind of problem. So there's so many stalking behaviors, and we do not have time to talk about all of them or we'd be here forever. But I think this is a helpful framework to just kind of expand our thinking on stalking victimization, because a lot of times when folks think stalking, they think surveillance. You know, you get the imagery of like the binoculars or the camera, and that is a big part of a lot of stalking cases, but it's not the only thing, because anything scary that's not the first thing that's happened could be part of a stalking case, right? And so these categories overlap and intersect, and that's fine. It's just to kind of help expand our thinking. So feel free to share in the chat ones of these that you've come across in your work. And I'll just share a few major examples of each. So surveillance is pretty much what it sounds like. How is the offender tracking, monitoring, watching, gathering information about that victim? And so that might be in person, like in Belva's case, where the offender was literally standing outside looking through her window, right? Or might have been calling her not only to bother her, but to see, is she home? Where is she? What's she up to? It could also happen through technology, right? So putting, like we've heard a lot about like tracking devices in the news, right? So putting a GPS device, putting a property tag or something on that person to see where they go, planting cameras and watching them through those cameras. And the technology piece is important, and we do training on the use of technology to stalk, but most, not all, but most stalkers who stalk using technology are also stalking in person. So that good old fashioned driving by the home, showing up, going through the trash, going through the mail, like all those are common stalking tactics as well. We also see quite a bit of what we call proxy stalking, which is a fancy way of saying stalking through other people. So for example, it might be maybe you call a coworker and say, hey, when's our shift over? I need to bring something by, right? Or, oh, did they end up are they going to visit their kids this Christmas, right? And so just asking that mutual acquaintance. Sometimes those third parties absolutely know they're helping a stalker, and sometimes they have no idea, right? And so it might be, oh, I might get in trouble, but you go check up on this person for me. Proxy stalking can look like that as well, but that's stalking through third parties. And we especially see that through children, right? So that, hey, is mom seeing anyone new? Is dad taking you on a trip, right? And getting that information that way. Life invasion is how is the offender showing up in the victim's life where the victim doesn't want them to be there. So the victim's just trying to get through their day, and there's signs or reminders about the stalker everywhere they go. So that we see that most frequently with unwanted contact, right? Most of us have our phones with us all day. And so every time it buzzes, they're texting, they're calling, they're commenting, they're putting in a friend request. There's a voicemail. We sit down to do our job. There's, they're in our work email, just that contact, trying to get you, trying to get you. It could also be showing up. And we see that quite a bit, just that, like, since when do you go to this church? Right? But then suddenly that offender is just inserting themselves in the victim's life, as well as perhaps showing up at the place where the person lives or works or goes to the gym. Property invasion, already talked about, that just breaking into someone's home. We saw that in Delva's case as well. Public humiliation and spreading rumors. And so if you remember way back when I started talking, there were those three scenarios. And one was that, spreading vicious rumors about a partner. Is that stalking, yes or no? And of the three, I'd be most inclined to say that's likely to be stalking, because that kind of humiliation and spreading rumors and discrediting someone are often part of a stalking case, kind of towing the line between life invasion and another category, which is interference. And you might be thinking, well, people gossip. That's not necessarily stalking. And you're right. But we see some really intentional spreading of rumors that's really devastating and sabotaging to our victims. For example, there was a case where an offender photoshopped nude images of the victim, wrote a bunch of lies about what she liked sexually, made copies, distributed it to everyone in her apartment building and workplace. Okay, so obviously that's beyond like, oh, people gossip, right? That is really spreading misinformation in this really malicious and targeted way that is causing this victim fear because she's being approached by third parties. She doesn't know who's seen this. It's sabotaging her career. It's sabotaging her social life, etc. And so we do see that kind of rumor spreading, as well as to discredit the victim so that when they do report, if they do, that they're not seen as credible or believable, right? Because of all the, well, we've heard some things about you too, right? And that's really coming from the offender. Intimidation is implicitly or explicitly, how is that victim being threatened? So those could be those direct threats that, you know, I will harm you, I will harm your pet, I will harm your child. But it could also be those implicit threats or symbolic violence, right? Like a crushed can, property damage, or, you know, when we think about that cup of coffee in the car, what's that really saying? Especially if there had been violence in the past. It's really saying, I found you and I can get to you. That's a threat, even though they didn't say out loud, I will harm you in this way. We also see symbolic violence, for example, a case where an offender would break into the victim's residence and kept cutting her underwear, right? So this kind of disturbing sexual kind of symbolic sexual violence, that's quite intimidating. Forced confrontations, like you're just outside. I don't want to go and get in my car because I will have to get past them. Threats to harm oneself, that's really scary to a victim, or threats about harming others. And so many victims say, hey, when it was just me, it was fine. But now that they're talking to my children, my friends, my colleagues, like it's really not okay. And interference through sabotage or attack. That could be financial or work sabotage. So getting somebody's password and then meddling in their finances, spreading rumors about them again. It could be keeping them from leaving, road rage, so like tailgating them, and that's really dangerous. Harming others close to the victim. Of course, property damage, very tangible interference, right? They slashed my tire, I can't get to work, that interferes with my day, or actual physical or sexual attack that then needs to be cared for. So again, these overlap and intersect, and that's fine. But I think it's important to expand our thinking beyond surveillance, and that anything that's scary could be part of the stalking case. And so make sure you're asking about all of these behaviors when you're screening for stalking. So here, because typically if you ask a victim, are you experiencing stalking? They're likely to be like, oh no, it's not stalking. But if you break it down to these smaller categories, well, have they ever tracked, followed, or monitored you? Have they invaded your life or privacy, right? So ask about these. You're likely to get more information. And if they say yes, ask, okay, well, how did we feel about it? Why, were you afraid or concerned for your safety or the safety of others? What accommodations have you made, if you've made any? And were you worried about financial or social impact, right? So getting that bodily harm fear as well as that emotional distress. If you love those questions, you'll really love this next thing, which is risk assessment specific to stalking that I truly cannot recommend highly enough. It's at coercivecontrol.org, and it basically just asks a whole bunch of questions about, hey, has this happened? Has that happened? How frequently? What's going on? It evaluates 14 risk profile questions, 14 elements of risk, and then it will create a risk profile saying, okay, you have a low, medium, high risk based on the information. You might use other assessments right now, like Mosaic or the Lab, and those are great, but they don't really account for as many stalking behaviors, right? And so here's an example. I know this is really tiny here, but this is what it gives you. It gives you this narrative that really succinctly breaks out, here's what's going on, helps victims tell the story, helps make sure we're getting the whole course of conduct, as well as assessing risk. We have a recorded webinar going through it with a sample case. So if you want to see it before you're using it, you can test it out. Really highly recommend, if you're thinking, could this be stalking, to know that this risk assessment does exist, and it can really help you get that information. Because there's a lot of potential stalking behaviors, there's also a lot of potential charges. And so if we're thinking about offender accountability, I know we have law enforcement on the call, a lot of offenders engage in other crimes in their course of conduct. So we always say, hey, if you can't charge stalking, charge something. Because it's trespassing, is it voyeurism, is it harassment, is it non-consensual image distribution, is it witness intimidation, right? All of these are crimes. And check your criminal code. Like I just did a couple trainings in Virginia. My favorite charge there is a misdemeanor. That's I'm paraphrasing, but it's something like causing a phone or pager to ring with the intent to annoy. Like that's a crime in that state, right? So look for those things. And I think sometimes it's easy to minimize, like, as these little misdemeanors, who cares? But we care because we're building the course of conduct. Because if on day one you have that annoying phone call crime, and on day two you have, say, voyeurism, I know I'm not your judge, but according to me, Judge Dana, you have a stalking case. You have 2 or more behaviors that would cause fear. But if we ignored that annoying phone call because we're like, man, who cares? Now we don't have stalking because we're starting from 2 instead of 1. I'm sorry, we're starting with 1 instead of 2, right? You need to build that course of conduct. And that also goes back to that documentation. We have a documentation log that could have helped Velda, but all her documentation was great, right? That all these incidents add up. So let's make sure that we are adding them all up to show that course of conduct, both for adjudication purposes as well as just to keep track of everything going on. So most stalkers use more than one means of approach. They're not just texting, they're not just following, they're doing a variety of things. 2/3 of stalkers pursue their victims at least once a week. Many pursue daily. And this really shocked me when I learned this. The average duration of a stalking case, not the high end, the average duration is 2 years. In many cases, last 10 years or more. And so you see there's a huge span here, right? There's a decent percentage of cases that might last an afternoon or less, certainly less than a month. And there's some that last throughout an entire lifetime. And so I bring this up because stalkers have time, a lot of them. They have time to change their tactics and strategies. And so when you're safety planning with stalking victims, no, you can't read the future, but as much as possible, you want to be thinking about not only what's already happened, but what might happen next. What access or information does this offender have about this victim? And be thinking about, okay, here are some common things that offenders do. Do you think they might try any of these? And then let's think about safety planning preemptively, as well as capturing that evidence. If we think they might come to the home, let's set up the camera, right? And so, no, you can't, again, you can't read the future, but being as predictive as possible, because just because they haven't done something yet doesn't mean they won't, because these cases are dynamic. So just really quickly, I want to highlight the intersection of stalking and intimate partner violence. I already mentioned that a large percentage of our stalking cases are the offender's a current or former intimate partner, right? So we know there's that relationship. So if we look at our friend, the power control wheel, of course, which I'm sure you've seen before, of course, this is highlighting the different ways that an offender might exert power and control over their victim, right? That it can include physical violence, sexual violence, but also all these other things, including emotional and psychological abuse. And so I bring this up because often in our field, if I hear folks talk about stalking and domestic violence at all, they'll talk about it like this. They'll say, okay, it was an abusive relationship, the victim left, and from the day that victim left, the abuser began stalking them. And that can totally happen, absolutely. But let's take a step back. If during the relationship, that abuser is calling all the time, showing up, putting a tracker on the car, showing up at work, asking friends and family where they are, threatening them, that's stalking, right? It's domestic violence. It's what we might call emotional abuse or digital abuse, and it's stalking. It's both. It can happen during or after a relationship. Over half the time, it's happening during the relationship as well. But I don't typically hear people call it stalking then. But it is, and we want to call it stalking in addition to those other kinds of abuse, right? Because while all stalkers can be dangerous, on average, our intimate partner stalkers are our most dangerous stalkers. So the most likely to physically approach the victim, be interfering, insulting, and threatening, use weapons to threaten or harm, have their behaviors escalate quickly. And while the recidivism rate is high across the board for stalking offenders, it's even higher on average for our intimate partner offenders. So this was a study of women. They'd all been abused. They all had protective orders. Some were abused and stalked. For the women abused and stalked, they had significantly higher rates of all these harms across the board. Everything from verbal abuse and degradation to physical violence, sexual violence, threats with a weapon, being beat up, attacked with a weapon, and injury. So when there was abuse and stalking, there were higher rates of all these other kinds of victimizations. And in terms of leaving that intimate partner relationship, you've probably heard the statistic that it takes an average of 7 times for a victim to leave an abuser. Well, what's that about? Not always, but often it's about stalking, right? That continued extension of power and control. And so, unsurprisingly, our victims of intimate partner stalking have more separation attempts on average than victims of intimate partner violence alone. And I think it's easy when I bring up stalking, and especially say domestic violence, to kind of dismiss the stalking and be like, okay, Dana, so technically it's stalking, whatever. But aren't we really focused on the violence here? And our victims are telling us something different, that actually the stalking is uniquely traumatic, even within a violent relationship. It makes them more likely to want to leave than other factors, including past injury. And so this is not me saying any victimization is better or worse than any other, but just saying that our victims are telling us that even when there's co-occurring victimizations, the stalking is something that they do find traumatic uniquely as well. And again, the lethality risks here. Like I said right at the beginning, a vast majority of intimate partner femicides are preceded by stalking. This is a more recent study that it's one of the top 10 risk factors for intimate partner homicide, threefold risk. And yet it's quite recognized, undercharged, right? And so what I'm saying here is, if you see intimate partner stalking in an intimate partner violence case, whether it's during or after, that should be a big red flag that this case may be especially urgent, that this victim is likely experiencing other kinds of victimizations. If we just call it emotional abuse or digital abuse, we miss that indicator. I'm not saying stalking is causing these other harms, but it is a red flag that they might be going on. This was a study in the state of Colorado looking at the response. And so here we had about 1,800 cases of domestic violence. About 300 involved clear documented evidence of stalking in law enforcement hands, which for all the reasons that we said earlier doesn't always happen, right? We have 298 cases, evidence of stalking, law enforcement hands. How many cases do you think were charged as stalking? Like got a stalking charge? It was one. Only one case was charged as stalking. And look, a lot goes into charging decisions. I understand that you want to be strategic, etc. However, we see this again and again, that even when that is underreported, absolutely, but even when it is reported, our law enforcement are not necessarily looking at this pattern of behavior and using those stalking statutes for that accountability that we'd like to see. Now, it can also intersect with sexual violence a few different ways. A stalker might be threatening to sexually assault the victim, right? That's part of their intimidation, is that the language is sexual in nature. You heard in Velda's story, he's kind of stealing items of a sexual nature, right? So there's something kind of sexual about those threats, or they could be quite explicit, right? They might actually sexually assault the victim. That might be part of the course of conduct. Sometimes the stalking also begins with sexual assault, and then there's contact after, either to say, thanks for a great time, or you better not tell anyone, or some conflation of the two. Or there's contact after to reinforce the harm of the assault. Like there was a case where an offender sexually assaulted a victim using an object and then kept mailing her that object, right? So to reinforce the trauma of that. Or they might try to get someone else, a third party, to sexually assault the victim. That might sound really off the wall, but we're seeing it more and more. So it's a little bit of an older case, but I think one of the more straightforward ones you might have heard about. There was a case where an offender went on Craigslist and pretended to be the victim. So impersonates the victim and posted an ad saying, I have a violent rape fantasy and I want a real aggressive man to come and assault me. And if I yell and scream, that's part of it, right? And here's where I live and here's what I look like. And because we live in a terrible world, unfortunately, a third party did come and assault that woman. The only good news there is that both offenders were held accountable. That might sound like this really off the wall thing, but it's increasingly easy to create a fake profile for someone on a dating website or a social media site. All you need is a photo of the person and a new email. And so unfortunately, we do see quite a few cases where offenders are impersonating the victim, reaching out to third parties, perhaps sharing intimate images, spreading rumors, etc., and then setting them up for dates that are really sexual violence or their sexual expectations. Or, a victim Googles themselves and they're like, that's not me, I'm not on that account, right? I didn't sign up for that. So we do see that. And when most people see that, they're not like, oh, stalking. But yeah, most of us are afraid of sexual violence. So that is a fear that is covered even under our narrow stalking statutes. It could also be that grooming, and I think when we think about grooming for sexual violence, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, I tend to think of younger people. but this could be happening to anyone at any age. And our offenders might perceive or assume that our older victims are more vulnerable, more isolated, more desiring of physical or romantic attention, less judicious, etc. And so assuming these vulnerabilities might prey on them as well, right? And so this is not every kind of sexually violent offender. They're not all doing this, but there are those certain kind of repeat offenders that really have this MO, right? They're going to research and identify vulnerable victims. Maybe they look for an older person who seems isolated, who seems lonely, who doesn't have a lot of family around. They're going to establish relationships and contact and build trust. Hey, I think you're really beautiful. I still think you're really exciting, you know. Then they're going to meet in person if they haven't already and isolate that victim, coerce them into sexual acts, and then contact them after, either to say that was great, let's do it again next week, or if you tell anyone, I will release these photos, or some conflation of the two. So if you think about that grooming under the lens of stalking, I mean, is it a pattern of behavior? Yes. Is it directed at a specific person? Yeah, they're choosing these targets intentionally based on their perceived vulnerability. And would it cause a reasonable person to feel fear? Yeah. You might be thinking, but when though? Because on day one, when that, say, older adult victim got that, you know, contact that said like, hey, I think you're really beautiful, like, let's chat. They might say, oh, I wasn't scared then, I was flattered. But now that I realize our entire relationship was a setup for my sexual assault, and it all started with that, say, text message, that's terrifying. That could still be a stalking case. There's no statute that says when fear has to attach. So that's also, people sometimes ask me like, well, what if scary things were happening, but the victim didn't know? Could they still, you know, does that count? And I'm like, yes, it counts. Because when you found out if it was scary, that could still be stalking. Similar to that domestic violence study, women who have been abused and in protective orders and were stalked have higher rates of a variety of sexually violent victimizations, from degradation to forced substance use, almost 4 times as much, implicit threats and force, and penetration while victims sleeping. And about a third of women stalked by an intimate partner also sexually assaulted by that partner. And so all this to say, long story short, too late maybe, I don't know, ask about co-occurring victimizations. Absolutely ask your stalking victims about their experiences of sexual and domestic violence. But if you're working with a victim who's primarily presenting as a domestic violence victim or a sexual violence survivor, ask them about stalking behavior as well, because so often it is missed, and then we miss those other indicators, right, of that increased chance for other kinds of victimization.
And if I can just jump in too, Dana, whenever NCALL does training, that is one of our training points that we hit all the time, is that forms of elder abuse often co-occur. And I would obviously include stalking as part of that. And, you know, I'm thinking about our standard slides that we use. And I think, you know what, we need to be better about making sure it appears. I mean, it is one of the OVW crimes, right, that they focus on. And I think when we talk about co-occurring crimes in the context of elder abuse, we think if somebody is being neglected, it's very likely they are often also being financially exploited. But I think just as often, you know, stalking could be part of that, and features of stalking are present in so many relationships like that. So I appreciate you mentioning the co-occurring phenomenon.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think, like you said right at the beginning, it's about these relationships where there's an expectation of trust. That's also the majority of our stalking cases. There are stranger stalking cases, but that's the vast minority. And so it's very much that same framework of exploiting trust and relationships in order to victimize someone, that we see with our, you know, abuse in later life as well as our stalking. And so I think so often they're really part of the same thing. So I appreciate you mentioning that. We don't have time to do a deep dive on the use of technology to stalk, but just a reminder that older adults use technology, which you might be like, I know, but just in case. I know sometimes I tend to think like, well, is this as much of a thing? And we can tend to think about the new tech trends, or at least I do, is like, what are the college students using? What are the kids using? You know, and no, most of us are using technology at this point. And so, you know, most older adults have cell phones, have smartphones, and this data is from 2017. So I would not be surprised if it had increased significantly since then, even though that wasn't so long ago. Many use social media. And of course, our younger seniors on average have, higher rates of technology use than our older seniors. There's a huge range between, 65 and 100. That's many years. So it's not all one experience, obviously. And so we just want to recognize that, yes, there is stalking through technology, and to make sure we're asking our older adults about their use of technology and stalking as well. Here are the most common technology tactics experienced by stalking victims. And some of these we saw in Belva's case, right? That unwanted contact, right? I like this, I don't like this list, like don't do these things, but I think that this list highlights all those different kind of categories here, right? We have that interference and that invasion with that unwanted contact, but also that surveillance, just seeing what people do on social media. It could be those interfering things, threatening to post inappropriate or personal information or images, tracking location. So really across the board, technology is not causing stalking, but it can certainly be used to enhance or facilitate a lot of the stalking behaviors that we see. Few warning signs, that location tracking, right? They know where the victim is. It's not always through technology, but that can certainly enhance it. Are they sharing their location on different apps? Did someone perhaps plant a GPS or something, or a property tag on them? If they know things the victim never told them, right? They must be reading my email. They must be seeing my text messages somehow, right? They must have somehow gotten into my device or my account. Or just kind of a general weirdness, like I can't get into my account. This is acting weird. And I think, especially with older adults, people are likely to discount this, right? Like, oh, you just forgot how to log in. No, let's take that seriously, because offenders often hack into accounts, reset things, change passwords, all of that. And we just kind of want to be mindful of our biases against older adults and our assumptions about their level of tech savvy, because that might really lead us to minimize what is very legitimately technology abuse and stalking behavior, right? And kind of not see that potentially. So because that seems pretty bad, right? All those things that can happen, should victims just log off? And I think it's important to play this out, because it's often advice that victims are given in one way or another. Is just like log off, change your phone number, that kind of thing. But let's play this out for a second. So let's say I'm, again, stalking Anne, because I'm the worst, okay? Let's say I love to call her. That's my favorite. I'm always like, call. And eventually she's like, I am so over Dana stalking me. I'm going to block. I'm going to change my number. I'm going to change my own number because I cannot with Dana anymore. So eventually I call Anne and I get that this number is no longer in service. Am I, the stalker, going to be like, oh man, I guess I'll stop stalking Anne and become a productive member of society this day? No, I'm already stalking Anne. I know her email. I know where she works. I know where she lives. I'm just going to find another way around to get to her. And I might actually escalate my behavior, because how dare she? That was my favorite way to stalk her, and she took it away from me. So this isn't to say that victims should never make these changes. And from a criminal justice perspective, it's helpful because it shows that resistance and persistence, right? It shows my intent. Anne changed her phone number. Dana found the new one. Anne blocked Dana. Dana made a new number to call her. Anne stopped picking up the phone. Dana started emailing, right? It shows my intent. That's helpful evidence. But did that make Anne safer? Maybe, maybe not. And so you really want to ask victims how they think the offender will react to any of these changes. They might say, that'd be great. That'll send a clear message. I'll feel much better. Awesome. Or they might say, I think that'll make them really angry, and I'm afraid about what they'll do. Plus, if they block everything from the offender, now it's a wall between them, right? So that goes both ways. A lot of times our victims want to know what our offenders are up to a little bit, so they get that text saying, I'm coming over. If not, it's completely opaque, and they can be really, really caught off guard. The National Network to End Domestic Violence does some great work on technology safety. So definitely recommend you check out that app and those resources for just more information on the use of tech to stalk and commit related crimes, and happy to talk to you about that more later as well.
All right. I also want to point out that on the NCALL website, we have something we call the Tech Safety Toolkit that launched in November of 2020, was recently updated. We did that. We created that in collaboration with the Safety Net team at NNEDV. It's really got some good practical information steps you can take, checklists, like really excellent resource. So please check that out in our resource, in our publications library. And just to respond to a couple questions in the chat, we will be sending out a PDF of the slides after this webinar. So look for that. It will also be posted on our website. The recording will in a week or so. We want to talk a little bit now about our response to stalking and how to check ourselves and our organizations to make sure that we are a resource that is approaching this in a way that it is being identified first and foremost, and also responded to in a way that is appropriate for older victims. So some of the challenges that older victims of stalking may face that might be unique are, even though we know that older adults use technology just as much as anyone else probably, but the way that stalkers use technology to surveil and to access people, they are savvy, and they are skillful at changing their tactics when somebody has caught on to what they're doing. So it's hard to stay ahead of somebody who's doing that, who's really, really skilled at that. So there can be confusion about how technology works or how it might be used to surveil. I know this from helping a family member get out from under an identity theft situation, and she had no idea that what she was doing at the instruction of this other person was really making her vulnerable. So somebody in the chat made a really good point too about social media. It's super fun to go to an event and say, hey, I'm here at the ski team trials or whatever event I'm at. Like, that's great, but we need to think about, yes, your friends can see that, but who else can see that? And are you disclosing your location or what you're doing and making yourself more vulnerable, particularly for people who have got a history of being stalked? If they're involved in that sort of situation, that would be something obviously to avoid. Other challenges, like we've talked about, are minimizing the threat. Either the victim is saying, oh, he's just bugging me, he's just calling me a lot, I want him to stop, but it's not dangerous. Well, now we know how things can escalate, how things can change. And that slide that Dana uses, that stalking is often homicide in slow motion, always I find really chilling. But it's also food for thought, because things start in a way that maybe would be perceived as benign, but can escalate. So we need to be careful about letting people minimize that threat. Another barrier that people have is, again, getting back to these ageist assumptions that we make about the capacity and the ability of older people to understand what is happening to them and to accurately relate what is happening to them. Like every other form of abuse and exploitation, we need to start by believing that person. If they are experiencing fear, if they are being victimized repeatedly by somebody who is making them fearful and uneasy in their own home and worried about their future, we need to start by believing them. Also, it bears repeating that even people who do have dementia, are able to accurately relate and describe traumatic events that have happened to them. Sometimes those events encode a little differently in our brains. Sometimes we might repeat details out of order, but traumatic experiences imprint in the brain differently than just what I had for breakfast today, which I couldn't begin to tell you. But so making those assumptions that somebody is confused or even because they do have dementia, they can't, what they're perceiving can't be right, is dangerous and is going to allow people's victimization to occur. Other challenges, sometimes people have medications that impact their ability to ask for help or impact their functioning, particularly if they're taking or if somebody is providing their medications for them, if somebody else is in charge of dosing them and they're not getting something that they need, or they're getting too much of something that they need, that can be a challenge to get them to report stalking. And the other is that others just can't understand that somebody would want to stalk an older person. Again, getting back to ageism, people see the TV show You, and it's all just beautiful people being stalked. And we have ageist assumptions about what beauty is, and what we also are mistaking the fact that stalking is not a crime. It's not about attractiveness. It's not about romance. It's not about, I think you're beautiful. It is about power and control. It's about violence. And that those victims, everybody is vulnerable to being a victim of those sorts of crimes. If you have other ideas about some of the challenges that older victims of stalking might face, I would invite you to drop those in the chat, but we have talked about a lot of them today. When people do respond or people do report abuse, when we talk to them about this is again, according to the National Stalking Study, we looked at the impact again of ageism and stereotypes around older victims. The study noted that when older victims did report stalking, they're often told that they're overreacting and that the threat level perpetrated against them was not that serious or minimized or not acknowledged at all. So older adults who participated in that study also noted that after reporting, they weren't taken seriously when they were reporting. I think Belva experienced some of that. Again, getting back to how ageism has infused our view of older people and what their abilities are and what their perceptions are. I think it goes into the way that many services are provided. So it's a good idea for us to check ourselves and to look at our services. And like Dana said, use that checklist on the SPARC website to really take a hard look, a close look at what you're doing and, making sure that, yes, you are responding in a way that is welcoming and responsive to older survivors. So when victims of stalking in general do seek support and assistance with dealing with stalking, we see that a plurality of victims, you can see at the top, seek support from family and friends, or from folks like employers or an attorney and maybe the justice system. But really that bar at the top, friends and family, is clearly where people go first. And then working your way down the list, you can see mental health professionals, faith leaders, doctors, nurses, or the smallest one, contacting victim services, a shelter or a helpline. Obviously, people have reservations about doing that for all the reasons that we have been discussing. So keep in mind as we go to the next slide that the number one way that people are going to seek help is enlisting help of family and friends. Sadly, the research also shows that they are least likely to be able to be aided by family and friends. Family and friends can fall prey to those same stereotypes, those same issues, not believing the older person, not believing that they fully understand what they're experiencing, not believing that stalking is something that would happen to an older adult. So sadly, when they do seek support and assistance in dealing with stalking, we do know that when it's family and friends, they are actually least likely to be helped by them and less likely to access effective services and supports to dealing with stalking than younger victims are. So it is a sad reality, and again, a good reason for us to look at the way that we're providing services. Go to the next one. So finally, in terms of the impact of stalking on older adults, I want to point out that what we know about victims of elder abuse, including victims of stalking in general, is study after study and story after story that we hear from older adults shows that the experience of abuse dramatically increases the rate of morbidity and mortality for older victims. Older victims are 3 times more likely to die prematurely than non-abused older adults. And that is a stark statistic, and unfortunately very real. So what are the implications of that? I want to return to where we started in terms of thinking about whether you as service providers and advocates for older victims are working with older victims of stalking. Are you recognizing it as stalking and treating it as stalking? And if you are working with older adults who are being stalked, and many of you indicated that you are currently working with some of those folks, and we're treating that as elder abuse more broadly, what are the issues that present themselves for older victims who may need assistance and support and interventions for this stalking? What happens when we label stalking as elder abuse? Does that present challenges to accessing effective services? It's something to think about, and it's something to think about as you review the services that you are providing. Like what does that mean if we call it stalking, or if we separate it, if we call it elder abuse and lump it in as elder abuse, or if we separate it out and call it stalking. I would say that some of the, if we can go to the next slide, some of the disadvantages of labeling stalking as just elder abuse, it can tend to minimize, I think, stalking behaviors. It might allow some of those ageist assumptions to impact a potential response or investigation. I feel the same way about the way we've come to talk about elder abuse. We try to work against this in our work at NCALL, but often elder abuse is domestic violence grown old. When we think about elder abuse, I think there are a lot of stereotypes out there, and people just think, oh, it's somebody who's exploiting their grandma and taking her Social Security check, things like that. But when we call out these behaviors, we start to understand the different kinds of dynamics, the stalking dynamics that we've talked about here today, the power and control wheel. Those are all applicable. And I think it's important to not necessarily lump everything in as elder abuse. People tend to think of stalking not as a crime experienced by older victims, which we have talked about. And again, typical services that are related to elder abuse or geared towards older adults may not necessarily address the specific and unique dynamics of stalking. Last, it can diminish other people's perceptions of the victim's experience if we apply a broader term rather than calling it stalking and calling it what it is. So just some things to think about in terms of how we use language around this issue. We are going to get into some response strategies and resources, and I will turn it back over to Dana.
Thanks, and I'll try to be succinct, which you've all experienced is not my strong suit, but I just want to make sure we have some time for questions, and I'm happy to stick around as well after we hit the hour if folks, I don't know if Anne's available, but I will be here if you want to.
I can, for sure.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and just to add to this, I think this is so critical. And for stalking, I mean, we want to name it stalking because it has its own risk profile. Because when you think of stalking, you want to be thinking, oh, okay, surveillance, life invasion, interference, intimidation, because you want to recognize those additional risks, those other victimizations I mentioned. And also you might want to use like the stalking harassment assessment and risk profile and kind of activate your stalking tools in a way that might get lost if we just kind of lump it in with everything else. Not to minimize that it can co-occur with everything else, but it's also its own victimization that requires its own response, like Anne said. Big picture strategies, hopefully we impress this upon you that consider, is this a stalking case, right? Whenever you hear about an incident, is this isolated? Is it part of a bigger pattern of behavior? And recognize that victims cope in different ways, right? All of these are normal human ways to respond to a traumatic situation, but some might be more or less helpful in dealing with the stalking. You might have some victims move against the stalker. So it's like, oh, you're stalking me? Cool, I'm taking you to jail. Like that is what we are doing, being very aggressive and assertive in that. You have others move inward. I don't want to bother anyone. I don't want to put anyone at risk. I don't want to cause a problem. So they really isolate. You have some move away. That includes relocating, but also like changing routes to and from work and changing your phone number. You have others do the opposite, move towards the offender to kind of appease them. If you want to talk every day, I'll call you once a week, right? So that sense of trying to kind of negotiate. And you have some move outward, move to folks like you who can help. And that's wonderful. But by the time they've done that, they've probably already tried some of these other things. So it's helpful to ask them, what have they tried, so we can meet them where they are. And also to speak to that move away piece. I already mentioned how that, changing your phone number or anything like that may not necessarily be the most helpful because offenders likely find a way around, it might escalate. One piece of move away advice we do generally advise is to cease contact with the offender. And that's because stalkers see any contact as a win. So if the stalker calls 100 times and the victim picks up and says, I hate you, don't call me, tomorrow they're calling 101 times, right? But that kind of disengagement isn't always possible and realistic. And some victims do like to feel they must, reach out to the offender to take the temperature of the situation. For example, there was a case and it turned out the victim had called the offender at 2 a.m. They talked for hours. And so everyone's like, well, how scared can this victim be? Why are they calling the offender then? And we asked the victim, and the victim was like, yeah, I knew he got off work at the bar at 2 in the morning. I could hear him get in his car, drive home and fall asleep. So, I know he wouldn't come over, break my windows, wake my kids up again. That is perfectly reasonable safety planning, right? So it's both. Recommend no contact with the stalker and realize that may not be possible. So let's keep the dialogue open about that and not make victims feel like they did something wrong or this somehow undermines the realities that they're being stalked. Of course, what we need most of all is much easier said than done, which is that coordination, right? Because so often our work is siloed, and frankly, our system is not set up to remedy stalking. It is set up to be incident-based. It's not set up for something that is highly contextual, sometimes multi-jurisdictional, which we didn't even talk about today, multi-incident kind of event that stalking victimization is. So we really need everyone to gather on this, right? We need our awareness educators to make sure our general public knows what stalking is. That when they tell that friend or family member, which like Anne said, that's who they're telling first, that person responds with, wow, that sounds really scary, let's give you some help, instead of minimizing it and saying like, okay, but is it stalking or is it stalking, right? That they really say, that sounds scary, let's get you help. And when they do connect to those victim service providers, that those victim service folks recognize what's going on, screen uniquely for stalking, and safety plan around it urgently. We need our law enforcement to identify it and charge it. We need our prosecutors to pick up those charges and argue them effectively. We need our courts to sentence it appropriately. We need our probation, parole, and corrections folks to continue to hold those offenders accountable and keep our victims safe. When any of that doesn't happen, we lose victims. And we don't want that to happen. Our system just isn't set up for this, right? And it's really no one's job to focus on stalking victims and make sure they move through the system and get the help and coordination they need. So it kind of has to be you in whatever role that you play, recognizing that after this 90 minutes to 2-hour session, you now know more about stalking than most people in our field. That's the reality of the situation. And so other folks may not understand the urgency here, but that you know better, and to really be that advocate for that victim and help walk them through this and get them to the next step as best you can, because they really need us, and there's no one else to do it. There's also, of course, that coordination when we're talking about our stalking in older adults. It's not just these. This is it's also our area agencies on aging. It's our aging network services. It's adult protective services, and certainly engaging other groups as well. Is it the religious space that they're involved in? Is it? I mean, there's so many potential community partners. We certainly don't want to leave anyone out who can be a good point of intervention here. When we think about safety planning, we want to just be considering really the realities of that victim's life, right? And be comprehensive and flexible. Think about everyone affected by the stalking and what legal issues need to be identified. And think about the physical health, but also the social and emotional health of that victim. Only victims can tell us how they want to balance that freedom and safety, right? And so it's a really tough call in all these little decisions and in the big ones. And so we need to really listen to our victims there. Here's some of the services that we provide. If you're thinking, wow, I want to hear Dana talk more about stalking, you're in luck, because we offer in-person trainings, webinars. We have a ton of online resources, also individual assistance. So if you're working with a stalking victim or just want to talk to someone about it, you can reach out to us. We're the technical assistance provider on stalking, just the way that NCALL is about abuse of older adults. And so we're happy to be there for you. And of course, Stalking Awareness Month materials. We're sharing resources every day right now. And so visit us at your favorite website. You know it, you love it, stalkingawareness.org. Definitely check out our guide on that we wrote in collaboration with NCALL about stalking in older adults, but also those practitioner guides for multidisciplinary professionals, for our victim services, law enforcement, et cetera. Training modules for the public awareness piece, victim resources like the brochures, infographics, et cetera. And do follow us and keep in touch. And yeah, the closest thing we have to a stalking hotline is Victim Connect, run out of the National Center for Victims of Crime. And so if you're ever sharing like the RAIN hotline, the DV hotline, make sure you share that as well. SPARC's a project of Equitas, the prosecutor's resource on violence against women. So for prosecuting stalking, digital evidence, talking about prosecuting elder abuse, etc., definitely reach out. Free 24/7 technical assistance.
Thank you, Dana. As always, I know people are starting to drop off a little bit, but I love presenting this with you because your info is so excellent. And, you know, if stalking can be entertaining, you are going to make it so. But super useful and a lot of updated data and research this year. So that's really great. I do want to mention before people take off that I already talked about how NCALL is the TA provider for the OVW Abuse in Later Life program. That solicitation for that grant came out yesterday, and we'll be sending out, we'll be posting on our website information about the solicitation and the grant, but it is really, really terrific. The official name of the grant is the Training and Services to End Abuse in Later Life program. The maximum funding request is for new project is $750,000 over 4 years. There are lots of details about it that we could give you, but if you want to go to the next slide, the primary components, oh, I have a different one. Primary components of that grant are training, victim services, cross-training for community service providers, and coordinated community response. It is really an amazing grant. I know that a ton of you on this call are already grantees. I have seen firsthand the difference that it makes in communities and the way that in a short period of time, 3 or 4 years, communities can really create sustainable change in the way that older people are treated and are responded to during the life of this grant. So I would encourage you to check out our website. We'll be posting information about that. You can email me. You can also sign up for our newsletter on our website. We've got a ton of, you can follow us legally on the social media as well. And then we have a ton of other resources available. We do awareness and outreach materials for the different awareness days like Stalking Awareness Month, World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. And you're welcome to download those and use them in your own outreach materials. And what else we have? I just want to thank you. I would invite you to follow up with Dana or me if you have questions afterwards. I'm going to, we have a whole 2 minutes, Dana. We rock.
We did it.
I'm going to take a look at the chat and see if there are any other, yes, World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, June 15th.
It's Stalking Awareness Month right now. Okay, let's focus in.
I'm sorry. I was just looking at the chat. Yes. We don't have certificates, but you'll be getting an email confirming thanking you for your attendance, and it will have a copy of the slides, and then eventually we will have a link to the recorded webinar. So you will get that email from us. See if there are any other questions. Thank you for the kind words. Yeah, Dana and I can stick around if there are questions. If people want to post them in the chat, we would be happy to answer them, or if it's a small group, I'm cool with people unmute. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's all the questions I see. Thank you. I can't believe the great response we had. We had a ton of people, 250 at one point. I really appreciate all you guys so much. So, and Dana, thank you to you. This is always such a great event.
No, thank you so much for making it happen. I appreciate so much. It's wonderful to see the enthusiasm for it and folks joining. So truly my pleasure. And yeah, definitely don't hesitate to reach out for folks on the call for any further stalking resources or training. So hope this was helpful. Sorry we didn't get to as much Q&A as we would have liked. That's on me and my long-windedness. But feel free to contact us with further questions and we'll get back to you.
I think it's part of our charm.
It's part of our charm. Yeah, let's do a reframe.
Somebody said they missed the comment about certificates. We don't have certificates, but you'll get an email confirming your attendance, and you'll get a copy of the slides and a link to the oh, Kathleen, you're my new favorite person. Oh, and Anna just posted a link to an evaluation. We would love it if you wouldn't mind doing the evaluation. So in the chat, Anna Cash just posted the link. I'm dropping it in the chat again. Somebody's asking what we need to do to implement a national hotline on stalking. Dana, you got it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an idea that we certainly come back to. I can't tell you like step by step, well, here's how you do it, because I haven't done it. But I think that it's always kind of a back and forth where, you know, these hotlines are really, of course, you train the hotline staff, but they're generally referral networks to folks to, you know, get help locally. And so we want to make sure, not we, but I'm speaking just kind of generally, the general we, you know, we want to make sure that our victim service folks really know and have the capacity to help stalking victims. And we want to make sure there's a centralized place those victims can go to get referred to that. And it's kind of hard to know. It's a little chicken and egg what happens there first. Do those things happen simultaneously? Because we absolutely have some wonderful victim service providers who offer great services to stalking victims. And we have a lot who just don't have the capacity or training to do so, right? And so it's always tough when we say like, well, just give someone a call and we hope it works out, you know? So there's always a little chicken and egg that way. I think that there's different ways to approach it if someone's interested in taking that on. It could be adding stalking to some of the really wonderful existing hotlines we have, like expanding Victim Connect to be 24/7 and more stalking focused. It could be adding stalking to something like the DD hotline or RAIN. I'm not speaking for any of these organizations. I'm just speaking for like, well, here's some stuff I think would be cool. So I'm not volunteering them in any way. But I think, yeah, it would be about building that network and then logistically figuring out, you know, what does that look like and where does that go through? My instinct would be to start with a network that already exists, like some of these hotlines that are already really successful and have models that really work. So, and also to look at what, I mean, there is a stalking hotline like in the UK, for example. So I'd be curious about the details of how that works and learning from their models as well. So I don't have the plans and I'm hiding them. Like I just, you know, I think it'd be a great thing to pursue. But yeah, that's beyond our scope at SPARC. But I think it can be a problem because it is really hard for stalking victims to know right where to go. That being said, Victim Connect does refer stalking victims and they're trained on stalking, et cetera. It's just not as robust a network as like the DD hotline or something that's 24/7.
Cool. I don't see anything else. So unless anybody wants to unmute and has a specific question, we can call it a day.
Thanks to both of you. It was great.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thank
Good
you
to see
guys.
you. Thank you all for attending. We really appreciate it. We look forward to doing this every January, and we hope we will see you again next year.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dana. Thank you, Anna,
Thank
for
you.
your.
Bye.
Thanks so much, Anne. Thank you all for joining. Have a good one.
Thank
Bye, everybody.